There is a voice inside my head. It judges me before the world gets its turn. It rehearses conversations that never happen. It rebuilds arguments that ended years ago. It predicts betrayal inside ordinary silence, then calls its fear intuition. At 3 in the morning, it drags old evidence into an empty courtroom and puts me on trial again. For most of my life, I called that voice me. I believed every warning. I wore every accusation. When it called me damaged, I carried the wound like identification. When it expected abandonment, I prepared for footsteps leaving. When it whispered danger, I reached for armor, even inside rooms where nobody was attacking me. Then one question cracked the wall. If that voice is me, who hears it? There is the voice. Then there is something noticing it. Something hears the judgment, the planning, the negative self-talk, the endless inner commentary. Something notices my mind agreeing, resisting, remembering, and overthinking. That listener does not argue. It does not need applause. It simply remains. That is where my real investigation began. Before language, I already knew atmosphere. I knew when familiar footsteps carried danger. My body understood what my mouth could not explain. Then words arrived. Pain became pain. Home became home. I became I. Once I could name myself, I could judge myself. Once I could imagine tomorrow, I could suffer inside events that had never happened. The inner narrator took its chair behind my eyes. It became journalist, prosecutor, witness, judge, and prisoner. The same voice occupied every chair. That is the first truth about the inner voice. It can create the courtroom, present the evidence, deliver the verdict, and still pretend it merely reported reality. But stay with me, because this is where the mirror turns. I began watching my thoughts instead of automatically obeying them. A memory appeared. Fear followed. Then an explanation entered and claimed to be truth. I did not choose the thought. I caught it entering. If I authored every thought, I would know exactly what I was going to think next. I never do. The next thought always arrives from somewhere I cannot see. Then the narrator steps forward and claims ownership. I chose that. I control this. This is who I am. But even that claim is another thought that appeared uninvited. The thief writes his own receipt. When I search for the thinker, I find more thinking. When I search for the original face behind the mirror, I find reflection behind reflection. My eye cannot look directly at itself. My mind cannot stand outside itself and inspect the entire machinery. For years, that frightened me. I believed silence meant emptiness. I feared that if the voice stopped, nobody would remain. But that fear belonged to the voice. It understood what real silence would expose. It was never the king. It was the messenger wearing a stolen crown. My inner critic was not born evil. It was trained. It learned from consequence, rejection, shame, cold walls and doors that close without explanation. It checked every exit because once I needed exits. It expected impact because impact had arrived before. It learned survival so well that it continued surviving after the fire was gone. I respect what that voice once did for me, but armor becomes a cage when the war ends. A guard becomes a jailer when danger leaves. That is the difference between self-awareness and overthinking. Self-awareness sees the pattern. Overthinking locks the door and walks the same corridor all night. One gives me responsibility. The other gives fear another uniform. I cannot heal by believing every sentence produced by an injured mind. Here is the turn most people miss. The problem was never that thoughts existed. The problem was that I treated every thought as a command. Anger entered, and I became anger. Fear entered, and I called it prophecy. Memory dragged chains across the floor, and I rebuilt the prison around it. Every storm convinced me that I was the weather. But thoughts are weather. Awareness is the sky. Storms arrive. They darken everything. They make noise powerful enough to shake the glass. Then they move. The sky does not chase them. It does not beg them to remain. It contains the storm without becoming permanently damaged by it. I am learning to do the same. Sometimes the machinery slows. Music passes beneath language. One breath ends before another begins. For one suspended second, nothing is explained, judged, or repaired. Life stands naked before language covers it. In that gap, I do not disappear. The voice is quiet. The witness remains. Silence is the ground beneath every sound. A thought can appear only because awareness gives it room. I do not create that awareness through discipline, meditation, philosophy, or clever language. It was here before every method. I spent years trying to silence my mind. That became another war. I attacked negative thoughts with positive thoughts. I answered every accusation. I tried to outthink overthinking. I collected explanations, philosophies, psychological models, and spiritual language. I gave the prison better lighting. I gave the cage intelligent names. Still, I remained inside. I cannot think my way out of a prison built entirely from thought. The mind will decorate the walls and call decoration freedom. It will turn healing into another performance. It will create a new identity called the self-aware man, then demand recognition for becoming it. The ego can steal even the truth about ego. That is why I make no throne from this discovery. I am not enlightened. I am not above men who still believe every voice inside them. I recognize them because I have lived there. I still return there when pain finds the right door. The difference is that I now recognize the room. I know the mirror that distorts everything. I know how fear dresses as logic, how shame pretends to be honesty, and how control disguises itself as preparation. Recognition creates distance. Distance creates choice. And choice is where responsibility begins. I cannot control every thought entering my mind. I can decide which thought receives my hands. A thought can knock without becoming a guest. A memory can rise without becoming my home. Fear can speak in my own voice without becoming the truth. I can hear old footsteps and refuse to run. That is not motivational fantasy. That is disciplined self-awareness. The voice will continue worrying, comparing, planning, and predicting. That is what trained machinery does. I do not hate it. I put it back in its place. It can warn me. It cannot rule me. It can remember. It cannot sentence me. It can plan tomorrow. It cannot steal today. It can speak. I decide whether I follow. Sometimes the voice is correct. Sometimes the mirror shows damage I caused. Silencing the inner critic is not the goal. Listening without surrender is. Truth says, I did wrong, repair it. Punishment says, I am wrong, remain broken. Truth produces responsibility. Punishment produces repetition. I no longer confuse cruelty with honesty. My past is evidence. It is not the judge. My scars are history. They are not instructions. The man I was explains some things. He does not own the man I choose today. Quieting the mind is not forcing silence. Real quiet comes when I stop answering every knock, defending myself before imaginary courts, and demanding that every question produce an immediate answer. Some questions dissolve when I stop feeding them. Who am I without the voice? I am not a sentence. I am not a fixed object trapped behind my eyes. I am awareness, memory, body, choice, consequence, and change. The river needs no separate riverman to flow. The flame exists through burning. I exist through living. The narrator arrives afterward and claims the work. My heart beats without consultation. Breath enters while I sleep. My eyes receive light before thought names the color. Life moves through me before language writes its report. The voice is a wave claiming credit for the ocean. I search for peace as if it were missing. I search for myself as if I had disappeared. I search for awareness while standing inside awareness. I used my own eyes to look for my eyes. The locked door was never locked. The key was another invention. That does not protect me from loss, age, betrayal, or consequence. It does something more useful. It stops pain from becoming my entire identity. When the voice returns tonight, I will hear it. When it opens old files, I will notice. When it predicts another abandonment, I will breathe. When it calls me by names I have outgrown, I will remain still. I will not argue with every ghost. I will not defend myself before an empty courtroom. I will not put on armor because memory heard footsteps. I will let the voice finish. Then I will choose. I am not every sound inside my head. I am the room before fear names it, the mirror before history marks the glass, and the witness who remained through every fire. The inner voice has spoken throughout my life, but it has never been the whole of me. Knowing that does not make me superior, it makes me responsible. The voice can point toward the cage. Only I decide whether I enter. If another man is still trapped inside that courtroom, I will not call him weak. I know how convincing those walls can feel. I will remind him where the door is, then let him decide whether he is ready to walk. The voice may follow us outside. That is fine. It no longer carries the keys. I know what happens when a man believes every voice. He serves old fear while calling it instinct. He repeats old damage while calling it fate. That is why this matters. Awareness alone does not open the door. The choice I make afterward does. If you recognize that courtroom, say something real below. Not for me. For the man reading silently, still believing he is alone. Sometimes one honest sentence shows him where the door is. The voice may keep speaking, but the final verdict is mine.